Hi guys, Victoria Paxton here. Thanks for stopping back by my YouTube channel. Let me start with a few things. First off, if you could subscribe and hit the notification bell to receive updates, that would be awesome. So today I'm doing Lee Harvey Oswald. Okay, so let me go through all this jibber jabber stuff of the background and then we'll get to the communication. Okay, so back to the video. Lee Harvey Oswald was born October 18th, 1939, excuse me, in New Orleans, Louisiana. Excuse me, I don't know why it is whenever I'm about to record, I lose my voice, I lose my voice, it's so weird. Okay, so between 1939 and 1956, so Lee Harvey Oswald was born October 18th, 1939 in New Orleans, Louisiana. His dad died 2 months before he was born, so unfortunately he never got to know his dad. So between 1939 and 1956, Lee and his mom moved many times, and we're talking like they'd be in one town for 3 months. You know, from what I've studied, it nonstop moving for the poor kid. October of 1956, Oswald dropped out of school and joined the U.S. Marine Corps. Wow, that was smart, huh? He was apparently a great sharpshooter, but he wasn't good at taking directions from his superiors. The military wasn't for him, obviously. He started talking about pro-Soviet views. He became extremely radical, of course, which back then was a big no-no. So he was released from the Marine Corps on a hardship plea in September of 1959. Wow. So he lasted like 2.5 years, I guess. 9 days later, he left the United States and was on his way to the Soviet Union, which, you know, he became an extreme radicalist talking about the Soviet Union, so that kind of makes sense that he would do that. He was living in Minsk, where he met and married Marina Prusakova. 13 months later, in June of '62, he returned to the U.S. with his wife and a 3-month-old daughter named June Lee. It's kind of a cool name, June. I had an uncle named June. Yeah. In June of 1963, Oswald bought a .38 revolver, and then in March, he bought a rifle with a telescopic sight, all through the mail. So even back then, you could purchase guns through the mail. Doesn't that like blow your mind? Blows my mind. That's crazy. April 10th, he was in Dallas, and he allegedly shot at, but missed, Edwin A. Walker, a former Army general. Okay. I couldn't find anywhere whether this was really true or not, as far as what history says. So, yeah, more on that later. So later that month, he left his wife and his daughter with a friend in Dallas, and he went to New Orleans, where he set up a one-man branch of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, and he distributed pro-Castro flyers. Yeah, so there was recently a presidential candidate that was talking about how great Castro did several things when he was in office. Yeah. So anyway, in September, he went to Mexico City, where, according to the Warren Commission, he tried to get a visa for Cuba, and he attempted to get permission to return to the USSR. That's interesting. In October, he returned to Dallas and got a job at the Texas School Book Depository. So most of you probably know that's where the person that shot JFK was positioned, was in the Texas Book Depository building. Yeah. Okay, so, and by the way, just in case you wanted to know this, a fun fact that John F. Kennedy was our 35th president. So at 12:30 p.m. on November 22nd of 1963, from a window on the 6th floor of the depository building, Oswald allegedly fired 3 shots from his rifle and killed President Kennedy and wounded Texas Governor John B. Connally, who was sitting in the car in front of Kennedy. So a bullet went through Kennedy and into Mr. Connally. He then took a bus and a taxi back to where he had rented a room. So remember, his wife and daughter, he had left them with a friend in Dallas. And so he was like renting a room from like a group home, not a group home, but back in those days, you know, people needed extra money. It's kind of how Airbnb works. Like, they would rent out a room, right? So he was supposedly stopped by Patrolman J.D. Tippit because J.D. Tippit believed that he matched the description of the shooter that was seen running from the book depository building. He allegedly shot Tippit with his revolver and killed him. At approximately 1:45 p.m., Oswald was seized in the Texas theater by police responding to the reports of a suspect. So apparently he went in this theater, somebody called and said, hey, I think the suspect's here. He looks like the suspect. You know, you got to remember, back in those days, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have the internet, you know, so whereas nowadays, if somebody were to do that, they would probably be caught really quickly. Back then, I mean, that's amazing that, you know, he was caught that quickly. So at 1:30 a.m. on November 23rd, he was formally arraigned for the murder of President John F. Kennedy. On the morning of November 24th, while he was being transferred from jail to an interrogation office, I guess they were going to interrogate him some more to find out, you know, what else they could to try to prove that he had done it. He was shot and killed by a man who was a distraught nightclub owner, Jack Ruby. So, yeah. Ruby was tried and found guilty of the murder on March 14th of 1964, and he was sentenced to death. In October of 66, a Texas appeals court reversed Ruby's conviction, but before a new trial could begin, Ruby died of a blood clot as a result of cancer. So Ruby died January 3rd, 1967. It would have been really nice had, you know, things gone forward with, you know, with Jack Ruby, because I think a lot more would have come out. You know what I mean? Okay, so there are a couple of interesting things that I'm going to point out. So almost 2 years after Oswald defected to the USSR, he typed a letter to the U.S. Embassy on August 8th, 1961, about returning to the U.S. In the letter, Oswald mentioned he could catch a military hop back to the States from Berlin. So this is really interesting, because if anybody, you know, has family in the military, a military hop is where, if you're in the military, if there's a military plane going somewhere that you want to go, you can jump on that plane and go for free. It doesn't cost you anything. So the interesting part is he had got the hardship plea, gotten out of the Marines, right? Fast forward, he defected to the USSR, and then all of a sudden he's writing a letter to the U.S. Embassy saying he can take a hop. You can't take a hop if you're not in the military. You know what I mean? Like, so that's interesting. So, yeah, why would Oswald write that? I mean, obviously he was still in the military or connected some way, you know? Also, if he defected to the USSR, let's be real, nobody would want him on a military plane. You know what I mean? Because that's like, oh, you're the enemy, you know, big time. Okay, so let me keep going here. So, yeah, so I had, there were so many discrepancies in this case. I mean, you know, I'm sure you all have seen through the years all the conspiracy theories and everything, right? So here's one interesting fact. Okay. If Oswald had killed JFK and then was able to escape with his rifle from the building and go, okay, so the smartest thing would be what? To get out of Dodge, get out of the U.S. quickly, right? I mean, if he just killed the President of the United States, why would he risk the chance of staying there? So when they arrested him, he didn't even have a visa. He had no way to leave the country. You know what I mean? So had he have made it to the airport, he wouldn't have been able to go anywhere, you know? So that baffles me. Yeah. Here's another interesting thing I pulled up. So before Kennedy was shot, the U.S. State Department, okay, hear what I'm saying. The U.S. State Department loaned Oswald $435.71 so that he could fly from Berlin back to the States. So that was when he had written the letter to the U.S. Embassy and said that he could take a hop, which you can't take a hop if you're not in the military, right? Why would the U.S. State Department lend him $435 to go from Berlin back to the States? You know, the USSR, like, and the U.S. weren't doing good at this time, so it just doesn't make any sense that they would loan him the money. It doesn't add up. Yeah, it doesn't add up. Okay, so one thing with me is, you know, like all the cases, I mean, the ones that you've seen on TV and anyone that's famous, or if it's a big case, you know, like John Benny Ramsey and Madeline McCann, sorry. You know, I have to take my preconceived beliefs and I have to put that aside, you know, because I want to go into this objectively, you know. So, you know, and let's face it, there are so many conspiracy theories and everybody believes some kind of conspiracy theory, right? So I had to like push all that aside. I just have to like get all that out of my head, you know, and start out like with a blank slate, basically. Okay, so he came through pretty quickly. He was very agitated and very, what's the word? Like hyped up, you know, like he was like, you know, like he had a lot to say, and you could tell he was really anxious and really agitated. I mean, he was angry, you know, which I might feel that way too if I were in his shoes. So the first thing I noticed is, okay, he didn't come off like, hold on guys. Oh my God. Y'all, every time I go to record, my mouth gets dry and I start struggling. Since I'm addicted to Diet Ginger Ale, I needed some. Sue me. I know it's bad for you. I know. Okay. All right. So he did have like a slight accent. I think it might be like the New Orleans accent, how they kind of have like a little small accent when they say specific words. Here's the other thing. One thing I forgot to mention was, sorry guys, these lights are hot, man, I'm burning up in here. You know, people said that he spoke Spanish. He was fluent in Spanish and German and Russian. Yeah, I don't think so. He did not come off, how do I say this nicely? He didn't come off as a very educated person. I know he dropped out of school when he was like 11th grade or something, I forget. But he just didn't come off, I don't know. He didn't come off to me, in my opinion, he didn't come off that he was very educated. All right, so let me proceed. The other thing that was interesting about him is when he was talking to me, he was talking really quickly, which I've explained this before. For whatever reason, a lot of the times when spirit comes through, they talk really fast. And I have to get them to, namaste, slow down, you know? I have to get them to like calm down, because otherwise, it's almost like, you know, when you see like a cartoon character, like Tom and Jerry, and they would like fast forward, you know, and then they're like, you know, talking like that. It's almost like that when they come through to me sometimes, and I have to just say, okay, relax, calm down, you know. And a lot of times I have to say, okay, do me a favor, come back and see me in 24 hours, like come back later, because you need to calm down. And usually I can convince them to calm down, because I explain to them, like, I can't help you if I don't know what the heck you're saying, right? So yeah. But he leaves out, and I don't think it's because he speaks so quickly. I don't think that has anything to do with it, because a lot of spirits come through and speak really quickly. You know what I mean, to me? So I finally got him to calm down enough to where I could understand what he was saying, but he leaves out, like, almost like if a word is like 2 syllables, sometimes he'll leave out 1 syllable, if that makes sense. It's not, I had put down that he leaves out words, but it's not necessarily that he leaves out words. It's that he almost doesn't like finish, doesn't say the word in its entirety, you know? So, yeah, I don't know. So, okay, so immediately, you know, when I get him to calm down, he keeps mentioning, even when he was talking really fast, I could understand George and I could understand Mac. So he kept bringing up George and Mac, okay? Which I'll get into that part later, but he was constantly mentioning their names. Okay, so he's talking about how he was employed by the FBI, which I find interesting because, you know, when I was talking about how he tried to do the military hop and, you know, he was loaned money. I mean, it kind of makes sense. If he was truly employed by the FBI, it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, this is just what I'm passing on. This is for entertainment purposes. This is just what I'm getting. It's just what I'm getting. You know, I'm just a little nobody. It's just what I'm getting. But yeah, he was talking a lot about being employed with the FBI and feeling let down by the FBI, and obviously he feels that he was wronged all the way around. So, which we'll talk about in a minute. So he was apparently, he wouldn't go into specific details, which I don't know. But he said he was in fear for his life, his wife, his daughter, and anyone that was in his circle, anyone he was, you know, friends with or related to. He was like desperately in fear. Yeah. Okay, so apparently at some point he came to know about a plot to, what was it? Okay, so he found out about a plot to kill the president when the president was going to be in Chicago, right? So he called his point of contact and said, look, I heard that these people are going to try to kill the president in Chicago. So that's based on what he's saying to me. If this is true, then why would he ultimately shoot and kill the president? It doesn't make any sense. If he's trying to protect the president and he's calling and saying, hey, you know, this group of people are talking about killing the president when he's in Chicago, why on earth would he then turn around and kill the president? You know what I mean? If he just hates the president and he's a bad dude, it shouldn't matter who killed the president. You know what I mean? Like, why would he tell on this person? It just doesn't make any sense. He went on to say that, you know, why would he kill? He was basically trying to plead his case. Like, why would I kill the president? Like, I went so far as to put my life, my wife, and my daughter's lives in danger by calling and telling about this plot to kill President Kennedy in Chicago. So why would I then turn around and kill him? Which is exactly what I was saying, right? So, yeah, so that kind of doesn't add up. I'm wondering if any of that is out there. You know what I mean? If it's like general knowledge. I don't know. So I started asking him a few questions. I asked what he thought of Castro. And interestingly enough, with what's going on with the different Democratic presidential candidates, and the one talking about Castro did this illiteracy program or something like that, which was a good thing. it's kind of ironic because Oswald was talking to me about, there were a lot of things that Fidel Castro did right. But he said there were a lot more things that he did wrong than what he did right. He was a horrible man. And he said, I was young, I was easily influenced. I took the few positive things that Castro had done and ran with it and thought, oh, wow, he's a great guy. He said, but I was able to see the other side of it, and he really wasn't a very good man. So that's ironic that, what is it? Senator Bernie Sanders is talking about Castro on the news lately, Okay, I asked him, why would you be set up as a murderer? What would be the point in that? And he went on to explain that by him being the scapegoat, right, obviously that took the pointing fingers and pressure off of the real murderer. He said, I was a lowly nobody. I didn't make a lot of money, for what I was doing. And he said, in his mind, it made sense that they framed him, that they set him up as a murderer. And he said, hindsight's 2020. I wish I would have realized this prior. Obviously, I wouldn't be in the situation that I'm in, or that I put myself in. He went on to say that it ran really deep. Mafia, police, politicians, what did he say? Lawyers, activists. He said there were so many people involved in this that, hold on, guys. Ugh, my mouth is so dry. Okay. He went on to say that there were so many people involved. And he said at the time he was caught up in it all. He said he felt that he was helping, But he said, hindsight's 2020. He said, if I would have had a little bit more time and taken a little bit more time to sit back and really think through things, I would have seen that all these people that I thought were on my side were in fact a part of all this. So, okay. He again brought up Mac and George. So, George, who was one of his contacts, connections, I guess George tried to tell him that they were going to set him up, that he was going to be set up. He didn't believe it because he said, who am I? Why are they going to set me up? That doesn't make any sense. So he looked at it from that perspective. He said Mac, on the other hand, Mac was one of his connections, and he said that he had believed in Mac, and he shouldn't have. So he didn't go into too many specifics. He's not in a very good place right now. And, you gotta, look, he was immature and stupid. He made a lot of mistakes, right? He was a follower, obviously. That's why he was, latching on to the Soviet Union's beliefs. And then he latched on, when that didn't work, he latched on to Castro's beliefs. He was just an immature, uneducated guy who got caught up. And as a result, yeah, he got set up. Yeah. I tried saying to him, you need to move on. But he's kind of stuck where he's at, and he feels like he can't move on because he feels like, I guess, almost like he needs to fight for his name. But I, explained to him, look, this is not going to change. The history books still say that you tried to kill the president, or that you did kill the president, sorry. So he's just not listening. And I feel bad that he's in this horrible place, but there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah. Okay, guys. This does it for me. So yeah, I'm going to start this new series. Excuse me, like I said at the beginning, of, connecting with people in history, like, for example, Jeffrey Dahmer and Charles Manson, and then political people. And, I just try to do it and see how far I can get with it. So, yeah, so thanks for stopping back by my YouTube channel. Be nice to people. It's free. It's free to be nice to people, right? So, have a great day, guys. Bye.